All right, in this video, we're going to apply our understanding of arithmetic sequence and series. So we're going to use the two formulas that we know and apply them to some word problems. So make sure you put today's date in the upper corner of your notes sheet. So remember, we have two formulas that we can use when we're dealing with arithmetic sequences. So for a sequence, if I want to find the term in any sequence, you're going to use this formula. A sub n equals d, your common difference, times n minus 1 plus a sub 1. The other formula we have is when you have the sum of a series. So to find the sum of a series, you use s sub n times with n times a sub 1 plus a sub n divided by 2. So remember, the n is just how many terms there are. This is the first term, this is the last term, and then you divide by 2 to get the sum of that series. So if you have a word problem, such as the following, you're going to have to probably use both formulas in order to get the sum based on the questions that they're giving you. So let's look at some examples. All right, some examples you might see are going to be like the following. A car travels 300 miles the first hour, (420 miles the next hour, (540 miles the third hour, and so on. What is the total distance after 5 hours? Okay, so there's a couple ways we can solve this problem. First, I'm just going to list the numbers. So 300 is my first term, then 420, then 540. So going in order, these numbers are increasing by 120. So the next two terms I can calculate just by adding 120. So sometimes you don't need to use the formula if the numbers are small enough or the sequence is small enough, where you could just continue the pattern. And it's asking what's the total distance after 5 hours. So I could just find the sum of all those numbers and add them together. That would give me the sum. I could also use the formula that we learned, where we take the number of terms times the first and last term, add it together, divided by 2. So if I use the formula, S sub n would equal, there are 5 terms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The first term is 300, and the second term is 780, or the last term is 780, divided by 2. So if you calculate that, 300 plus 780 divided by 2 is 540. So it's going to be 5 times 540. And when I multiply that, you get 2,700. So the total miles after 5 minutes, or 5 hours, excuse me, is 2,700. You could add those numbers together as well, just to double check. So 300 plus 420 plus 540 plus 660 plus 780 will get you to 2,700 as well. And that's applying the formula that we've learned to an application problem. Let's take a look at a little bit harder of a problem. All right, let's say this time we're given a sequence that's a little bit longer than 5 numbers. So it says a theater has 30 seats in the first row, each row behind the first row increases by 2 seats. How many seats are there in 20 rows? All right, so this one, since it's a little bit longer of a sequence because it's asking for 20, we're going to probably want to use one of our formulas to figure out how many seats are in that 20th row, because we already know how many are in the first row. So I know I've got 30, and then 32, and then it's continuing to grow by 2. I want to figure out all the way up until the 20th row. So we're going to have to go to that original formula that we learned, which is where you're given the term number, you can find what its value is using this formula. So remember, D is your common difference, how it's changing, and then A sub 1 is your initial value. So in this problem, the rows are increasing by 2. There are 20 rows, plus there's 30 rows. There are 30 seats in the first row. So multiplying 2 times 19 plus 30, that means by the 30th row, there are 68 seats. So if I kept adding this 20 times, you would get up to 68. So to find the sum, I go back to my sum formula. The number of rows times your first number plus your last number divided by 2. So in our problem, the number of rows, we have 20 rows that we're trying to figure out, times my first number, which is 30 seats, plus my last row, which is 68 seats, divided by 2. 30 plus 68 is 98. Divided by 2 is 49. So we're just doing 20 times 49, which is 980. So that means that there are 980 seats in total in that theater, and we can find that out just by knowing the first and the last numbers in the sequence. So we had to do one extra step and use that formula to figure out the 30th row, or the 20th row, excuse me, in this theater. All right, so your homework tonight is just to practice with applying the formula.